Hey guys, this is Camfrey15 back at it with another video for you guys. And I'm back with another movie review for you guys. And we are here to talk about the next and newest installment in the MCU franchise, and that is Shang-Chi. Now, obviously, Shang-Chi is one of the more newer heroes introduced not only to the MCU, but as well as a new hero introduced into Phase 4. Along with, I'm guessing the next batch is going to be the Eternals. But Shang-Chi, my thoughts on Shang-Chi. I thought Shang-Chi was a pretty good movie. Definitely a really good standalone film, especially a very good, I would say, character intro story and stuff like that to the MCU. I really did like Simu Lee's performance of the character Shang-Chi. Now, again, I don't know much about Shang-Chi, nor do most common, I guess, fans of comic book hero, of superhero movies know who he is. All I just know is he's a guy that can do martial arts. That's the only thing I know. And stuff like that. But I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked this movie from start to finish. Definitely good film. And I definitely do think it's something worth your time to watch. So yes, but as I was saying, Simu Lee, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, I thought him as Shang-Chi was really good. He had a lot of charisma. And I really liked him. I really did like him. I got behind the character he was playing. And honestly, after this movie, he is honestly one of my favorite, MCU actors now after seeing just one performance in it. Now, I may go check out this movie again with one of my friends. So I'll probably definitely be watching this twice. I'm making this review after watching the movie, after watching this as the day after I saw the movie. But yeah, so just like my typical reviews, I'm going to give really the non-spoilers for a few minutes, and then I will go into the spoilers territory. I'm going to make sure to give a warning. There'll even be a little spoilers, little freaking cut, little short video saying spoiler alert and stuff like that. So, yes. As for all the other characters, I definitely like them. I'm not going to identify them as by their actors' names because that's too many. And then, second of all, most of the main actors' names are obviously people with Asian descent names, and I don't want to incorrectly say their names. But I thought the actor that played the Mandarin in the movie, I thought it was really good. My thoughts on the Mandarin, if you guys want to know in a non-spoiler way, I thought the Mandarin was a decent villain to say the least. I definitely did think he was a decent villain. Nothing too big or nothing too special, I will say. So I'm guessing it's up in the air how you feel about the Mandarin. You could end up coming out of this movie being like, you know what, I enjoyed the character who he was. Could they have done a little bit more with him? Yeah, but I enjoyed it. Or you could come out of the movie feeling like, it's not the Mandarin like I thought they would do the Mandarin. I will say that they have some things about the Mandarin that, you can see why, he's pretty threatening, but at the same time, you can see the differences in this Mandarin compared to, say, the comics Mandarin and stuff like that. I will say, though, it was good to actually see the real life Mandarin. Maybe one of these days, maybe I'll go back and rewatch every MCU movie from this point on and give a review of that. Or a review of it and stuff like that. So yeah, but the thing is, I was happy because when I watched Iron Man 3, I didn't like the whole bait and tease with the whole Mandarin in that movie and stuff like that, where really none of the guys in there, Trevor and then the one guy, I forgot his name, essentially self-proclaimed themselves as the Mandarin. Definitely didn't make me like Iron Man 3 anymore. Honestly, my whole things on Iron Man 3 is I thought it was a decent enough film, but I'm not really much of a fan of Iron Man 3. I thought Iron Man 3 was kind of a huge letdown in my opinion, but Hey, that's just me. So yeah, but I liked everybody. I liked the actress that played Katie. She was very spunky and had a lot of charisma too, and she had a lot of laughs. She was probably the one character that made me laugh a lot throughout this entire movie. Obviously, you see Benedict Wong in it. He's definitely in the movie as well. He's in the movie, but not a lot. He's just in. Obviously, you see from the trailers in the movie in that one fight club and stuff like that, where he's fighting Abomination and stuff like that. But all the other characters in the film, or you'll see when you ever watch the movie, I thought they were all pretty good in their own ways, and I very much enjoyed them. Visually, this movie is definitely, again, one of the better MCU visually stunning like movies. Like some of the freaking environments and just the cinematography and the way this movie looked was really good, especially with the action scenes, which I'll get into in the next discussion for my non-spoiler. Um, I liked how the film looked and visually how it was. Like, they had to bring those lush colors in, they brought those lush colors in. Sometimes when they have those dark scenes, like especially in the final battle, the tone and the shift of the like scene and how it visually looks definitely got a lot darker and everything. But I definitely did like it. This movie does have vibrant colors and stuff like that. So yeah, and action scene wise, I enjoyed every damn action scene in this freaking film. Again, if you love the MCU for action, you're gonna love this movie definitely for the action. The action in this film is definitely 10 out of 10 material. I'm not gonna give into spoilers about every battle in this film, but definitely one of my favorite fights, which at the start of the film actually was the bus fight scene where you saw from the trailer. That was definitely one of like the best fight scenes in the movie, and I was like, oh god, we're starting off on flames. And as you get more and more and more entrenched in the movie when it comes to the fighting, you're literally like, holy crap, this is going so crazy. The fighting is very fast paced, very high octane in terms of, just your eyes moving like of what you're seeing and stuff like that. But I enjoyed every damn action scene in this film. Um, and then I guess you could say the last thing I want to talk about is obviously the story without giving any details. Obviously, what are my thoughts on the story? I thought the story was a nice story. It definitely was a coming of age story for the character of Shang-Chi and the relation he has to his father, the Mandarin, and a bunch of other stuff that gets involved in there. Definitely, the movie is centered around Shang-Chi's, family, lineage and everything and stuff like that. Along with a bunch of other things to do with it. Again, can't get into spoilers because that's just stuff that would spoil the movie for you guys. But I definitely enjoyed the story. Is it one of the better MCU stories? I would think it's honestly like B tier in terms of MCU story. It's a nice coming of age story to introduce a new character. I will say that. Probably one of the better ones to introduce a new character. And again, that's why I never doubt Marvel with introducing characters you haven't seen. Again, the only time I never saw a theatrical release of a new MCU characters that I've never watched was the Guardians of the Galaxy. I ended up watching Guardians of the Galaxy on my TV when it came out on DVD and stuff like that. And I ended up loving it. And ever since then, I go to see any Marvel movie, whatever, even if it's a freaking character I have no investments, I don't know shit about. I don't know shit about Shang-Chi. And I enjoyed the movie. Now, again, this is one of the movies where it's up to you what you want to feel about it. If you come out of the movie theater saying, it wasn't my cup of tea, I'm not going to fault you for it. It's just your opinion. But if you come out of this liking it, hey, you like it. Honestly, I thought this movie was a really good MCU movie, a really good standalone solo movie. I wouldn't listen to what I would say people or the negative haters or stuff like that of Marvel right now are saying, because again, I said this in my Black Widow review, I believe. I said people only are now trashing MCU movies is because they don't think no MCU movie is going to get as big as Endgame. Now, that could very much be true, but who knows? I'm still thinking these are pretty solid enough movies on its own. I said Black Widow was a solid movie, and I honestly think Shang-Chi was a pretty damn good movie. Definitely out of the MCU movies we've gotten so far, well, since movies have been now, movie theaters have reopened and stuff like that. Definitely, I enjoyed Shang-Chi more than Black Widow. Again, I like Black Widow. I personally enjoy this a lot more and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would definitely give this an 8 out of 10. Honestly, that's my rating of the film, an 8 out of 10. It's a very great um, summer flick to watch, especially, on the weekends and stuff like that. So, if you ever do get a chance to check out the film, I highly advise you check out the film and stuff like that, because you're going to get introduced to a character that you'll down the road eventually like and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for my non-spoiler section. So again, like I said earlier in the review, I'm going to get to my spoilers. So again, I'm going to leave a spoiler warning. So right now, and stuff like that. I'll also make an edit where you see my spoiler, my intro to my spoiler review and stuff like that. But again, be warned, from this point on, I'm going to be doing spoilers for the movie. So if you have not seen Shang-Chi, the movie in its entirety, just to let you be warned, please click off the video. Go to, obviously, your movie theater if you feel comfortable enough to go check out Shang-Chi. Other than that, guys, if that's it, for my non-spoiler people, I'll catch you guys on the next movie review, whenever that is. I might make a movie review about the newest Suicide Squad, because I still haven't done that yet. So eventually I'm gonna have to get to that, but whatever. But anyways, I'm gonna catch you guys on the next video. And yeah, so as for then, guys, I'll see you guys in my spoiler review. So till then, guys, I'll see you guys then. See ya. Hey guys, this is Camfrey15, and I'm back with the spoilers discussion. So obviously, welcome to the spoilers, where we're going to talk about the spoilers. We're going to get talking about the mid-credit scene, and even the post-credit scene, and everything this movie had to offer in it. So yeah, now again, I'm not going to talk mostly about most of the main features of the film, like I said in my non-spoiler review, because that's what you got in my non-spoiler review. Here, I'm just going to talk about most of the story points and stuff like that. So when the movie starts off, we get essentially a narration of who the hell the Mandarin is and what he's done. And essentially, the narrator, which is Shang-Chi's mother, essentially, we find out that, the rings, Mandarin, who has the 10 rings, essentially has had them for an undisclosed amount of time. We don't know where he's got them or how he attained them and stuff like that. But essentially, the one thing we find about the Mandarin is the number one thing he really cared about is just having power and stuff like that. And he used the 10 rings to obtain and get that power he obviously desperately seeks and stuff like that. And we see eventually he goes to this one little area where these bamboo trees are at, and he runs into this woman who ends up, we find out, is Shang-Chi's mother. And they end up having a fight. Now, over time, even though I'm kind of a little bit into the film, they essentially develop a bond and a relationship. And we find out that Shang-Chi's mother is from a completely different dimension. And when obviously the Mandarin tried to enter the dimension with her to live, obviously, a very peaceful life, the guardians of Shang-Chi's mother's dimension essentially kind of said he can't enter in because all he cares about is power, especially about all the heinous acts he's done in the past and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll get more into that later, into the spoilers and stuff like that. So eventually they live off together, and she goes with him, essentially giving up her powers and everything she was doing. And that's how they raise Shang-Chi and obviously Shang-Chi's younger sister and everything. So yeah, I'll get more into the family dynamic backstory there. Also too, yes, the 10 rings aren't like the 10 rings from the comics, or even like that one Iron Man show, Armored Adventures and stuff like that. The 10 rings look like bracelets. And the 10 rings in the comics and other, I guess interpretations of when the Mandarin was in any, I guess, the animated shows is they would have like different abilities and stuff like that. Here, they're kind of just like an energy source, and we even find out in the mid credit scene they have like some ties to like some ancient type of celestial type of stuff, which we'll get into that whole thing later. Um, and stuff like that. So yeah. Now we cut over to present day. Now, if you're wondering where the movie takes place, the movie takes place probably, I don't know, maybe a month or two after Endgame. I wouldn't say the specifics, but definitely this movie takes place after Endgame. And if you're going to factor into Spider-Man Far From Home, I'm not Far From Home, No Way Home, my God. Um, I would say this movie is taking place before No Way Home because especially what Wong is doing in this film. But we cut to present day where essentially we see a much older Shang-Chi, and we even see a much older Shang-Chi. And essentially he's living in this basement and he has his friend named Katie, and they're essentially like, I guess you can say people who are covering people's cars and stuff like that at like I guess some big business or some hotel and stuff like that. They're essentially valet, people where they take your car and they go park it somewhere, and until you come back, that's when they come pick your car up and they give you your car and stuff like that. So yeah, and we even see in the movie how him and Katie go over to before they go to work over to Katie's mother's house. And kind of the whole thing, especially for Katie's whole specification of what she does this movie is essentially having a purpose in life to do more than what you're currently doing. That's kind of Katie's story. This in this film is the fact that it's her realizing that she can do something on a bigger scale than what she typically does. And by the end of the film, I guess you can say, well, her and Shang-Chi are officially, I guess, join the Avengers and stuff like that. And again, like in my non-spoiler review, I do like Katie because she's kind of clumsy, funny, and stuff like that. But I definitely did like what she did at the end of the movie when, even though she's that comedic character, you see in the climax of the film, she ends up getting serious and ends up damn near saving the day. Otherwise, everything would have been lost and stuff like that. So on their way to work, they get attacked by obviously members of the Ten Rings. And yes, the Ten Rings are a legit organization. They don't really specify if it's like what we saw in Iron Man 3, where it's like, oh, a makeshift terrorist organization. We just know that the Mandarin, he has this organization called the Ten Rings, where he has a bunch of dudes training for him, is this army and stuff like that. And I also forgot to mention, if you're wondering how the Mandarin has lived this long, because he says in the movie he's lived for tens of thousands of years old, it's because the Ten Rings, essentially keep you immortal if you hold them for long periods of time, or if you're wearing them, you're essentially an immortal being, and you live forever. So that's why, the Mandarin has seen different eras, from all the way back to like probably feudal Japan era, I'm guessing, all the way up until present modern day time, which honestly, in real present day time, I believe the year in the main MCU timeline is 2024, which is 3 years from this current point in time. But yeah. So they go on this bus and they're getting ready, but then they get attacked by Ten Rings organization. We have this one guy, which I'll pull his name up. His name is Razor Fist. Essentially, he's the guy with the freaking machete, the robot machete arm. And again, like I said in my non-spoiler review, this is probably one of my favorite fight scenes. And holy crap, like I thought this fight scene would be like in the freaking middle part of the film, but no, this is like first fight of the film. It's a pretty crazy fight and everything. Crazy stuff. Like literally just what you saw in this film, how Shang-Chi was fighting all around the bus and everything was intense and crazy. Now, essentially after this whole fight scene is over, the one thing we find out about the Ten Rings member, or the Ten Rings organization members are like, they're asking Shang-Chi before they started the fight, like, hey, give us that necklace of yours, give us that pendant. We find out that pendant on it or his necklace is from his mother. Eventually, after the fight's all over, he eventually realizes that they got a hold of it and they took it. Then that's when he goes back to his apartment or wherever he's staying at. And he got a letter from his sister. So what happens is he has to go find his younger sister and go warn his sister that their father is after them for the pendants and everything. And this is kind of when we get some more backstory into obviously Shang-Chi. We find out, he was training after his mother died. Essentially, his dad at first when they got married and they had kids, the manager gave up his 10 rings power and he's willing to be a family man and everything. But after his wife dies, which I'll cut into later in the review, essentially, we find out that, he restarted the whole 10 Rings organization and he freaking trained Shang-Chi from the start to be essentially assassin and everything. We find out later why he trained him to do that, which I'll get into later in the film. But we also see that the Mandarin kind of neglected his sister. And we kind of get a flashback of the fact that the Mandarin, when it looked like Shang-Chi was going to go on a mission to do something, more than likely at the time we know is to kill someone. He was going to be gone for about 3 days. So essentially Shang-Chi tells Kate, I haven't seen my sister in like years, essentially. So he goes to the Fight Club, which we see obviously from the trailer where it's Abomination versus Wong. Funny enough, I watched a reviewer, I think it was 3C Films. He pointed out a few Easter eggs in the scene. Now, when you cut to that one scene where you saw the one guy with red skin fighting the one lady in black, the lady in black had what looked to be a Black Widow emblem or a symbol. Now, we remember if you've seen the movie from Black Widow, so again, this is spoilers. If you haven't seen Black Widow to this point, I'm sorry. I'm spoiling anything. This counts for any damn MCU film. So you better have seen the movie. But we know in Black Widow, obviously Natasha freed the other widows from obviously the controller for, I forgot the one evil guy in that movie. So it seems like one of the widows is in this Fight Club. And the person she's going up against is one of those dudes that had the burning powers and stuff like that from Iron Man 3, where their skin would just look like it was burning up on fire or something like that. You know what I'm talking about. So those are Easter eggs from, those representative films and stuff like that. Obviously, the main thing we see in this whole Fight Club is, Wong versus Abomination. And this is another reason why this movie takes place, before Far From Home, because we see Wong's in this film and he's fighting Abomination. Now, Abomination, we don't get much of this fight, but it was a pretty cool fight. Now, Abomination, he looks more comic accurate to his comic book self, or probably, hell, he even looks a little bit similar. If you ever seen that Marvel shows the Superhero Squad, essentially has the gills or the things that he looks comic accurate, so he looks a little different. 2, he's also played by the same voice actor, the same actor that was in The Incredible Hulk. Also, if you're wondering if we're going to see Abomination again, yes, we will. Abomination is going to be in the She-Hulk Disney Plus TV series. I'm going to make his return. Now, after the fight's over, we see that apparently Abomination and Wong have some sort of relationship or something, or some sort of agreement that he gets to fight. And after that, he goes back to his prison cell, because we see Wong open up a portal to what it looks like this prison cell. I'm guessing that's the Raft or something, but it's somewhere, some prison cell. So he goes in there. Now, do I have a feeling he might join this Thunderbolts or Dark Avenger squad that Val is creating to essentially have their own version of the Hulk in this Dark Avenger squad, because they got essentially the Captain America and the Black Widow, which we know is Yelena, and obviously one dude from the one dude from Falcon the Winter Soldier. Well, here you go. Here's, I guess, their version of the Hulk, which is going to be Abomination, unless they have Captain Ross Thunderbolt be Red Hulk, and he's the Hulk version of that team. We'll just find out. But Abomination is going to be reappearing in She-Hulk, so that's the next thing we're going to have to wait for to see a more Abomination. But it was cool to see that, well, hey, he's in the film, or he's still a thing in the MCU, even though essentially you can say kind of Incredible Hulk is somewhat its own thing, but it's still part of the MCU because the only reason why people say that is because Edward Norton was Bruce Banner at the time, but now Mark Ruffalo is. So, yeah. But essentially the thing is Shang-Chi gets in the fighting ring, and he ends up fighting his own sister. Now, his sister's kind of pissed off at him and stuff like that because, well, he abandoned her essentially, and stuff like that. And after the fight, she beats him, like literally knocks him out cold. And essentially they have a talk, and essentially Shang-Chi's sister, which, hold on, as I'm getting to find, Zia Ling essentially was telling Katie, like, hey, my brother left me, just try to think. He said, my father said he would be gone for 3 days. Then it turned into a month. Then it turned into weeks. Then a month. And then years. And I was left alone all by myself where my father neglected me. We also find out she trained on her own because the Mandarin neglected her because essentially the Mandarin told her, like, you remind me of my wife and I want nothing really to do with you, and stuff like that. So essentially she was forced to train herself watching what the men did. And also, too, she couldn't train in the 10 Rings organization because the Mandarin felt like women shouldn't be in this organization and stuff like that. So she essentially taught herself how to fight. Eventually, Shang-Chi tells them, or tells her, like, listen, father's after us. He's after your pendant, your necklace. And she's like, why would you tell me? I can take care of myself. And he's like, but you sent me this letter. We kind of find out, I'm guessing it was probably some sort of tracker they kept on him. That note was probably some sort of tracker to find out where he was going. Eventually, you just have the 10 Rings organization raid the Fight Club. Now, Zia Ling gets away, but eventually what happens is, in this crazy fight scene on the side of a building, literally, she comes out and she literally saves Katie's life from literally falling to her death. And trust and believe, they were killing people off in this scene. They made people drop from damn near 20 stories types of feet levels, like high in the freaking sky, the skyscraper and everything. But eventually what happens is, after Shang-Chi almost tried to kill this one person he trained against when he was younger, well, the Mandarin shows up and he's like, oh, my son, I always knew you were willing to come back and I found you. So he takes him back to, obviously, their former home. And essentially, he goes on to tell Shang-Chi and Zia Ling that, listen, your mother is still alive and she's been calling out to me. I've been hearing her voice call out to me, and stuff like that. So the reason why he was coming to collect their pendants, which I don't know why he was sending his men, he literally could have just showed up himself and been like, hey, I need your pendants to help your mother. Essentially, he gives this pendant, puts it on this dragon, on which I think the dragon's name is Tao Lo. And essentially it creates this water-like type of thing where it shows this water map of where you can find this different dimension where Shang-Chi and Zia Ling's mother are. And essentially the Mandarin says, I've heard his voice and her people have been keeping her captive there, saying she can't return back to this world, and stuff like that. Now, eventually it gets to the point where Shang-Chi tells the Mandarin, like, okay, what do you want me to do? And he's like, I want you to bring her back here so we can live as family. And that's when he asks, what if they don't want her to return? He's like, well, you can just burn down and kill their entire village. And this is where Shang-Chi is like, hell no, I'm not doing this. Why should we kill innocent people over a mom and stuff like that? They gotta listen to us. This is also the scene where we find out, too, why the Mandarin couldn't join Shang-Chi's mother's village, and stuff like that. So the Mandarin's like, well, if you're going to feel like that, then I'm just going to have to lock you up. So they lock him up. And speaking of, like I mentioned about another Iron Man 3 reference, where they did a freaking Easter egg about the one guy in the Fight Club. Well, we get another Easter egg here, and we see, yes, the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3, aka Trevor, returns. Now, when I saw this, I was like, oh wow, they finally they made a way to pay off something from Iron Man 3 that I thought was completely useless. And a completely dumb storyline in that film, and they made it somehow relevant here. And I was like, hey, Marvel, that's how you tie in movies, and that's how you make something great from something that was a huge, utter disappointment in Iron Man 3. And again, Iron Man 3, maybe when I rewatch the entire MCU movies, I'll probably talk about how much I do not like Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is not one of my favorite films, to be honest. Like, honestly, thought Iron Man 3 was a underwhelming MCU film, especially in terms of the final film being in the trilogy for Iron Man. But I was like, okay, Trevor's back. He also has a headless chicken pig that they called it. But essentially, we find out how Trevor is alive. Essentially, Trevor was put into jail after the whole Iron Man 3 incident. But essentially, the Mandarin, especially earlier in the scene back when they first get home, the Mandarin brings up Trevor and says, oh, yeah, but you remember that one guy, who made the whole facade about the 10 Rings organization and deemed this as some sort of terrorist group and stuff like that? Well, guess what? I broke him out of prison, and I was going to execute him. I was going to kill him and stuff like that. But we find out from Trevor the reason why he wasn't killed is essentially he was such a good actor. I guess the Mandarin was like, oh, I guess he's pretty funny. Keep him, but lock him up, essentially. So yeah, pretty damn interesting, to say the least, and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool how they all tied that. Now, Trevor can speak to this headless being, which is from the other world that Shang-Chi and Xia Ling's mother hail from. Essentially, he's like, listen, this buddy can tell you the path to get there, to the other world. So essentially, they escape the clutches of the Ten Rings organization base, and they go to the area where we see in the first part of the film, where the Mandarin was trying to get into the other world. Essentially, we see how they essentially drive through this whole area because we see the forest open up. The whole thing is the forest can essentially kill you and eat you alive, and you have to stay on this destined path. And essentially, you have the freaking creature essentially telling them, oh, this is where you go, this is where you go. Eventually, they get to their mother's real true homeland, and when they pull up, they run into her people. And we find out that, well, the mother really isn't there. Her sister is there, which is Shang-Chi and Xia Ling's aunt, and stuff like that. So they kind of embrace him and everything. Now, obviously, they make a reference. Now, Shang-Chi asks about the 10 Rings and what relation do they have to this whole different world and stuff like that. And they kind of don't bring much about it. They kind of, so far, they're keeping the secret of the, and I'll say this, they're keeping the secret of the 10 Rings clearly secret. They gave some information, but not a lot. They're clearly keeping that up. And even when we get to the mid-credit scene, essentially they're telling us the 10 Rings are like types of like celestial type of, things made from a long, long, long ago. And they're used to do something, which we'll later find out, which I'll later speak up about later and stuff like that. So, yes. But essentially, this one kind of get the understanding of what this purpose of this whole different world is. Two, also I forgot to mention, entering this whole world, they have like different like creatures. You see more of those headless little bird-like creatures. We see a freaking dragon that's like a fusion of a dragon and a horse, because the body area is like a dragon. Even the noise it makes is a dragon. The face of it is like a legit freaking. Hold on, like the body of it is a horse. But, face-wise, it looks like a dragon, and it even makes the same noise as a horse. So it's like a fusion between a dragon and a horse. It looked pretty cool and stuff like that. I'm guessing what would be like a copy of Ninetales from Pokemon, and stuff like that. So, yeah, which I guess that's a Pokemon reference. Hell, they make a Dragon Ball reference with freaking Shang-Chi doing a legit Kamehameha with the 10 Rings. So, yeah, which, funny enough, they make the reference of, at the end of the movie where Katie's like, oh, yeah, Sean did freaking Kamehameha. And I'm like, what the I'm like, Dragon Ball? Well, we getting Dragon Ball references? Okay, This is what I'm talking about. Um, but essentially, we find out the backstory of this world. Okay. Don't know what happened there, but something happened with my freaking laptop there. But as I was freaking saying, and stuff like that. So, essentially, um, as I was saying, actually, hold on a quick second. I'm gonna freaking fix something real quick. Okay, again, sorry for the whole thing. Freaking issues on my end and my terms of my laptop. But as I was saying, their aunt essentially explains the backstory of this whole alternate world. We found out this world essentially is a whole in a whole different universe from the regular MCU world, from the real world. And essentially, the thing is, this world, the people in this world essentially are protectors. And essentially, we find out that those, like, I guess, speakings that, the Mandarin here is hearing essentially is coming from, these things like these evil, dark creatures that steal souls. And essentially, time after time, these creatures have been trying to have implemented these teachings and these sayings to just people in the real world, saying like, "Hey, come free me" and stuff like that. And essentially, this whole voice is essentially using the Mandarin to tell him or in the vision of having the Mandarin's wife essentially tell him like, "Hey, come free me from this domain and stuff like that. We'll be together again." But the Unc says, "Listen, there is a dark gate that protects it because there's this evil creature that, if released, will be all powerful if this creature manages to steal these souls and stuff like that." The protector, at one point, the dragon, Tai Lo, essentially protected us and saved us from utter destruction. Because what happened is these creatures with these evil souls, or these soul stealers, essentially were going to try to get into the real world, the main MCU world. Now it would have been just bad news and stuff like that. But that's when the dragon, Tao Lo, stepped in and freaking stopped that from happening. So essentially, what we see here is kind of training montages of our characters preparing for obviously the Mandarin to attack. We get a little bit more insight into the Shang-Chi backstory, and essentially we find out how his mother died. Essentially, the Mandarin, because of his past innuendos of doing what he did when he was legit the Mandarin, essentially after he retired being the Mandarin, essentially this gang came up at their household now. How the hell they found this household, no clue. But again, I guess you could say there may be like members from like a mob or something like that. So, but essentially, the thing is, they come and they're like, "Listen, we're here for your husband." And obviously, Shang-Chi's mother is like, "Well, he's not here," and everything. And she's like, "Listen, if you're here to do something, then you're making a great mistake. Leave my children out of this." And that's how she kind of tells Shang-Chi and obviously Xia Ling, like, "Listen, go away, stay safe, I'll take care of this." And how she essentially dies is what Shang-Chi sees as his mother essentially, I would say, get beat to death by these people. And essentially the Mandarin comes back and he sees us, and essentially he takes Shang-Chi to this area, and essentially they find this one hideout where these obviously these mob guys are. He essentially kills them and essentially tells Shang-Chi, "Listen, will you be on my quest to avenge your mother?" And stuff like that. And that's how he ended up getting back into the Ten Rings, creating a new Ten Rings Master. And he did it, our Ten Rings organization, to get revenge on the organization that killed obviously his wife. Eventually, we see that whole scene where throughout the movie where Shang-Chi is leaving to go on a mission, and that mission was the Mandarin found the killer responsible for the main dude who killed obviously Shang-Chi's mother and his wife, and he's like, "Listen, you do it because you have the right to do it, not me." Now, don't know why he couldn't do it himself, but okay, he sent his son to go do it. And that's how he ended up freaking doing. Now we find out that Shang-Chi ended up killing the guy, but he actually regretted it doing it later on because he's talking to Katie about this. And essentially that's what he says, well, I'm going to do what my father taught me to do, but I'm going to kill my father, and stuff like that. So eventually the Mandarin people, the Ten Rings organization show up with the Mandarin, um, and stuff like that. We get a very nice scene where obviously Shang-Chi and his sister get obviously their individual costumes. So we see the red costume, which essentially is the dragon scales from the dragon, or Tai Lo. I keep forgetting dragon's name and stuff like that. I think it's the other one. But also we do see Katie. She becomes like an archer, although her teacher is like, you're not ready for this yet. But essentially, what happens, you see this whole fight break out, and my goodness, pandemonium, like literally pandemonium. It gets freaking crazy in this fight. Eventually, you have Shang-Chi confront his father, the Mandarin, and essentially, you kind of have some pretty bad diss shots, like essentially where the Mandarin kind of disses Shang-Chi, saying you weren't strong enough to freaking protect your mother and save your mother from dying, and for that, you're going to pay for going to stand in my way. And the scene between Shang-Chi and the Mandarin, those fights, the fights in the movie between those two were pretty cool. Especially when it was when Shang-Chi had the 10 rings in his, 5 of the 10 rings in his, area and stuff like that against that. That whole fight scene's crazy good. Again, something visually stunning and stuff like that to see. But in the first go, essentially he gets knocked in the water and stuff like that. And we see as he's drowning in the water, he remembers what his mom told him, and that's the fact that he has the heart of the dragon, Tai Lo. And eventually we see the dragon appear. But while that's going on, you see the Mandarin is at the dark gate, and he's trying to break the gate. But at this time, he's freeing the freaking soul, the monsters that eat the souls. And it's funny because at first, their aunt is telling the other 10 Rings organization, hey, we need to work together to defeat these soul creatures. But essentially they don't believe him, but until they see actually somebody's soul being taken. And that's the one freaking ninja dude who gets taken. And freaking Razor Fist, he's like, after seeing this, he's like, okay, yeah, we're going to help you because I'm not getting my soul taken like that. And yes, if you get your soul taken by these creatures, you're dead. There's no return. It's not like the whole thing, you kill these creatures, you get your soul back in return, or the soul comes back to your body. No, you get your soul taken, they're dead. So the people that died in the scene for getting their soul taken died. Like the master who was trying to teach Katie how to do archery, he ends up dying. I did find it funny how Trevor, we see the one little creature come up on Trevor, and it looks like, oh, Trevor's dead? Oh, he must have got a soul taken. But no, he was just playing dead. He's like, just play dead and they won't catch you. And literally the freaking little freaking beast just turns up like it's dead. And I'm like, you know what? I'd probably do that in a real sense as well if I was in a whole situation where, I'm in an area where I can't escape. I'd probably just play dead. And do the best of my ability to see, hopefully the person doesn't just passes by and see that I'm dead and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably what I would do in a situation like that. Just play dead. Hey, I feel like that would be the quickest way to get out of, an issue. But essentially the dragon arises from the water. So Shang-Chi goes to confront, obviously the Mandarin again. Eventually, like I said, he gets in control of the 10 rings and ends up for the time being kind of taking down his father. But then that's when, we see the freaking big kaiju main freaking soul sucker thing. Or I guess the dragon, I guess you can say. And this is where literally turned into like a damn Godzilla movie, because you have to freaking good dragon versus the bad dragon that steals the souls and everything, and stuff like that. And essentially, the Mandarin saves Shang-Chi from getting his soul sucked, as well as giving him possession of the 10 rings. And essentially, the Mandarin dies. So here, the Mandarin dies in this movie. So he's definitely not coming back. He's dead. Again, obviously, my thoughts on the Mandarin. I thought his story was solid for the most part. Definitely different than from the Mandarin from the comics. But he did have some of those Mandarin tendencies from the comics. How he was a guy about wanting power, and stuff like that. But it's kind of like how in that Doctor Strange What If episode, how kind of love drives you mad for power because you want to do all this and you'll kill anyone in your way to try to get that love you had for somebody back. And he was kind of blinded by this love, thinking that, oh, my wife's calling out to me, but in reality, it's these dark creatures coming out, and stuff like that. Like he doesn't even believe it, even though he sees the dark creatures flying by. Now, again, some people might not like this interpretation of the Mandarin. They might say they kind of dumbed him down to make him come across more like a family man and stuff like that. That's not the Mandarin we had from the comics and stuff like that. The Mandarin we had from the comics was a cold-blooded killer, and stuff like that. Again, like I said, I don't mind that. Now, do I wish we had a little bit more of that type of Mandarin? Yes, but even then, you kind of did see that Mandarin where even in the flashbacks after his wife died, the Mandarin was willing to kill anybody and do anything, or really, really more than likely kill anyone or defeat anyone, even if it's his own family, to get what he wants to achieve, and stuff like that. But it's like I said, it's kind of something when you have a man who's kind of desperate with power, who wants this power as well as trying to think he's getting back somebody he truly does love, and stuff like that. So I guess you can say they kind of took some elements from that What If Doctor Strange episode that aired last week. So yeah, but essentially he dies. Essentially, you have the big kaiju battle between Tai Lao and this evil soul sucking dragon, and it turns into some pretty crazy action here and stuff like that. Like you got freaking Zia Ling and freaking Shang-Chi riding the dragon and stuff like that. Eventually it gets to the point where the dragon's almost getting his soul stuck out by the evil creature and stuff like that. But it was thanks to Katie firing an arrow through the creature's throat to be able to stop that from happening. Shang-Chi, Zia Ling, and Tai Lao all work together to defeat this creature, and Shang-Chi finishes the dragon off by using the 10 rings and essentially literally explodes it and stuff like that. Literally from the inside out. Pretty cool battle scene. I definitely enjoyed this because this time I was like, holy crap, this is insane. What the hell is going on here? Essentially, they do obviously the Chinese, I believe it's the Chinese tradition where they do the whole paper lanterns where they put them on the river, or on the ocean or the river, essentially, and as a way, being a symbolic way of saying goodbye to people that passed away as their souls go on to the next, or to the afterlife and stuff like that. It was a very nice scene and stuff like that. So we get to the end of the movie. Essentially, Shang-Chi and Katie essentially tell their friends from the start of the movie, because they go to this bar and they're telling their friends, and their friends were telling them, like, I think you guys need to like actually do something with your lives and stuff like that. Essentially, they tell their friends like, oh yeah, we did this and this, essentially recapping everything that they did in the movie and everything. Then we have Wong show up, and essentially is like, Shang-Chi, I am looking for a Shang-Chi. And obviously Shang-Chi is like, yeah, I'm right here. He's like, come with me because I need to show you something, and stuff like that. So he then takes them to the sanctum, and stuff like that. Now, this is when we get into the mid-credit scene and everything. So the mid-credit scene essentially involves Shang-Chi and Katie with Wong, and we see Brie Larson as Captain Marvel and Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Now, Captain Marvel grew her hair out. We remember from Avengers Endgame, she had shorter hair. Here, she grew her hair back and she has long hair again. And two, we see Bruce Banner. He's in his human form. He's not in the Hulk form. We also see he's still in the cast sleeve. So I'm guessing he still hasn't recovered from when he used the gauntlet to snap everybody back in reality. I don't even know if he's ever going to get functioning of that arm back. Some people, from what I heard, saying that could be like permanent damage type of thing there. We'll see. I would envision that maybe his gamma healing would kick in and maybe his arm would be back to new, but who knows? Maybe he's going to be just like that. I would envision his arm's going to be back to normal. It probably just is going to take a long time to heal because, well, guess what? You dealt with freaking something cosmic level and you made a huge explosion. It took out your damn arm. And stuff like that. So yeah, but we see that it seems like Bruce Banner must have mastered the whole aspect of now the fact that he can now power down to his human form and maybe even power up to his Hulk form. But essentially, this whole mid-credit scene talks about about the 10 rings, the fact that, well, the 10 rings are very, very ancient, and they're the oldest living things in history and known history. Like, they don't even know how far the rings have been or where its creators from or how old the 10 rings are. The one thing we find out is that when Shang-Chi used the 10 rings, essentially it sent out a signal where I think they said Captain Marvel felt it, and even Wong, other sorcerers like Doctor Strange, they felt this presence from Shang-Chi because of the rings, and they're like, I feel a presence or disturbance in the force. We need to find out who has these apparent rings. But essentially, we find out when they look deeper into the rings, it has this beacon that is essentially alerting something or someone to, I guess, come for the rings or something like that, which I'm guessing 9 out of 10 times is the creator of the 10 rings. Now, who that character is, we don't know. That could definitely be a setup for Shang-Chi 2, where the person or something that is coming after the 10 rings, because that's essentially because it's a beacon to say, oh, the rings are activated and we're calling out to you. So maybe that's the whole thing. The second movie is Shang-Chi protecting the rings from this person who's probably trying to steal them back. Probably the creators of the 10 rings and stuff like that. So yeah, now Captain Marvel's just like, oh, I got something I got to do, so peace out. So she dips. And yeah, so that's the last time we're gonna see Captain Marvel till Captain Marvel 2, unless we get any more Captain Marvel post-credit scenes. Anytime soon. Bruce Banner's like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. She's always gonna do this and everything and stuff like that. So yeah, well, nice meeting you guys. We'll find more about this stuff and everything. And that's when Wong, before the mid-credit scene ends, says, well, Shang-Chi and Katie, well, your lives are going to be different from this point on, and it's going to be more intense. So I hope you guys enjoy the ride, which essentially he's saying, well, excuse me. My God. Excuse me. Essentially, he's telling them, like, hey, well, your life's going to be different now because now you're a part of the Avengers now. So obviously, Shang-Chi, I don't know if Katie's going to be a part of this new thing, but definitely Shang-Chi is going to be a part of this newly reformed Avengers squad, which is definitely, I guess, still the Hulk, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, obviously Bucky and Sam, which we know Sam is the new Captain America. And stuff like that. And Bucky's obviously still White Wolf / the Winter Soldier, I guess you can say. Yeah. We don't know how the whole Black Panther thing is going to set up for the time being. I guess you can say Black Panthers are part of the Avengers. But yeah, that's kind of it. So he's a part of this newly reformed Avengers team and stuff like that. I guess you can still include Thor in there too. So because he'll probably come back and stuff like that. Because him and freaking Banner are the only ones that seemingly are not in terms of the retired list until, Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth are done playing the roles that they play, unless they have, I guess, Jane Foster, because she's going to be, I guess, a new Thor character, join the new cast of the Avengers, I guess, as that version of Thor. It would give them a girl in the group alongside Captain Marvel, I guess you could say. Yeah. And then the post-credit scene after the end credit scene essentially is Xia Ling making a new reformed 10 Rings organization. And the end credit scene says the 10 Rings will return. Now, will they return in maybe a Disney Plus show or Shang-Chi 2? I would envision that they would probably reappear in Shang-Chi 2, or maybe they might appear in another Avengers movie. I did watch Emergency Awesome's video, and he said they could maybe make an appearance or maybe appear in Captain America 4, which is the lead where Sam Wilson is going to be the lead Captain America, where maybe they go against the power broker, which we know is Sharon Carter. So that's the whole thing. But yeah, but we'll see them later. When we will, who knows? I don't know if this is going to create a whole thing where Shang-Chi has to fight her sister or something. I think him and his sister are on cooler terms and stuff like that. It wouldn't make no sense that they would fight. I feel like they'd be cool with each other because they literally saved the world. But hey, they take it where maybe the sister wants 10 rings for herself. I guess I want to be mad about that, but it wouldn't make no sense narratively. Why? Because it seems like Shang-Chi and Zia Ling are cool with one another and stuff like that. But again, like I said, I definitely enjoyed this movie. I like the flashbacks that the movie gave to get more understanding and stuff like that. I like Shang-Chi as a character. Definitely is up there as one of my favorite MCU characters we've seen so far. And I definitely did enjoy this movie. Again, I thought the story, for the most part, was a pretty solid, nice standalone film, especially as an introduction to the Shang-Chi character. That's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's not bad, and it's not like superiorly great. I think it's a great film, but not superiorly great. But I did think it was great. The action was definitely the best thing about this movie, and it was freaking awesome. And I had a blast watching this film. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Shang-Chi movie. As for the spoilers, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Listen, so yeah, but now I know now next Marvel thing. Now I know I've been kind of slacking with what ifs. I missed the last two what if episodes, so maybe I'll probably in my next what if review probably will make a review talking about the last few episodes along with the current episode coming out this upcoming week and stuff like that. So yeah, just to get caught up because I kind of been slacking behind that and everything. So yeah, that's the whole thing there. So I'll probably do that. But other than that, the next MCU, product after this, I believe, is the Hawkeye Disney Plus show. And after the Hawkeye Disney Plus show, is Eternals, which I will be reviewing those two things, and stuff like that. So yeah. But other than that, yeah. So till then, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next movie review. Until then, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.